I'm doing some preliminary work on the Mantic Games diorama this morning. I've got the figures built, got the building finished. I finished the truck, the mule transport, but I got it boxed up, sitting on a shelf now that it's done. But what I'm going to do is these guys are going to be waiting inside this building on this back side of it, like they're waiting to ambush them. I'm going to position them so that essentially it's like they're going to come running out this way. At least that's my thinking now. And then these guys are going to be coming in from this direction. And this guy looks like he's starting to run, so I'm going to have him, like he spotted them through that, and he's going to be running forward. And this guy's just starting to get up to speed. And then Commander Bob here is going to see what's going on, and he's going to point and say, run towards the enemy. Oh, wait, he's off camera. Run towards the enemy and, go do dangerous things. This guy, radio operator or radar operator or whatever he is, he's going to be staying near Commander Bob because you always got to have your radio guy near the commander. And then this guy, I'm actually going to have him pulling rear guard kind of off behind the vehicle. And he hasn't yet responded to the situation. I want it to look like, in my mind, what I'm thinking is these guys were going on just a routine patrol of an area, and these guys were hiding out waiting to ambush them. And they've just kicked off their charge, I guess you'd say, to do the ambush. Now, I'm going to credit them with less than stellar intelligence because they're going to, instead of firing from these areas in ambush, which would be perfect, they're going to be running out and trying to come around the corner. In my mind, is going to result in these guys just picking them off one by one as they come around the corner. So, who knows? That's where the diorama will be. As is the case, though, that on many of my vlogs, what I'm doing here is not what is really of my primary thought this morning. This morning, I'm going to be just drilling out some holes in their feet to put mounting pins in so that when I'm painting them, I can mount them on corks. Since I'm not using bases, I'm going to mount them on pieces of cork, and that'll give me kind of a handle to hold on to while I'm doing it. So I need to drill out some holes in their feet, and I'm also going to use this opportunity to drill out some barrels too. Some of them are going to be kind of tiny. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it with the drill bits I've got, but I'll see. But what I want to talk about is, quite often I get the question about what is, is there why is my drill not working? Is there is there some secret to modeling that I could reveal to people? That's something that, I don't know, modelers, that do things publicly, that are creators. Is there some secret that I could reveal that would just take their modeling to the next level? And I try to tell people that there really isn't a, like if you take this or that and spray it over your model, or if you always do this or always do that, it's going to come out, 87.5% better. There really isn't anything like that. If there's any secret, I suppose it's experience. And nobody wants to hear that because that means it's just a lot of work. Any knowledge I have is by copying others and doing this repetitively. I've figured up in the order I'm going to build things that terrain piece is going to be my 400th model since getting back into the hobby in 2006. Now, if you build minis and Warhammer armies, you might go, well, that's not all that impressive. But when you consider that most of them are traditional kits, it's a lot of models. But again, the other day I got a question about, is there one secret you can tell me that'll transform my modeling? And it hit me that there actually is, although it's not a secret, I talk about it quite often, but I realized it's the kind of thing that I don't always realize how important it is and how much I use it and how much I see other modelers using it. And that if you're not really aware of it and not taking advantage of it, it really can, I don't want to say limit you, but once you're kind of aware of it, then it kind of frees you up to a whole world of possibilities. And that is this secret, I guess you'd say, is using opacity. Now, by opacity, of course, I mean, you've got most paints you put on, if you don't really thin them too much, and they're a good covering paint, you'll put them on and they will be 100% opaque. Whatever's underneath won't show through. One or two layers, two thin coats, and it's completely opaque. Say you're painting on blue, whatever shade of blue you like. You paint it on, and it's opaque. But thinning the paints and taking advantage of lower opacity, and I don't want to necessarily say. The other day I was reading up on the difference between transparent, which allows all light through, translucent, which allows some light through, and opaque, which allows no light through. Because in modeling, I think we have to talk in degrees, so we talk about translucence, but we also talk about, lower transparency, lower opacity, that kind of thing. But lowering the opacity of your paints and taking advantage of, being able to put various effects underneath it. Like if you ever watch Sarastro's painting, and I highly recommend his channel, quite often he'll do, just about every time he primes in black, then he does a zenithal in gray, and then a bright highlight from above. And sometimes he'll even dry brush with an off-white. And then he'll use something as simple as contrast paints to paint a mini. And it looks really amazing. Then he'll add some highlights and things like that. But because he uses contrast paints and they don't reactivate. Sorry, couldn't help it. But he'll take advantage of the opacity, the lower opacity that the contrast paints offer, and it will allow that undercoating to show through. And it's the same way if you've seen any of the videos where I do, or you've seen other people do it, where you put one base color down. I did this on the Stompy Baby Carrier, the kind of the modulation type thing, which I wasn't really proud of the result. But anyway, you take in that case, I took a darker paint, and then I began glazing on layers of a lighter paint to get kind of a graduated effect. And there's so many ways to use it. I started thinking about it, and I realized I use changing opacity for weathering, for painting, for it can be for putting on layers of dirt. It can be for putting on layers of fluid stains. It can be for so many things. And I realized, okay, I guess in a way, opacity is kind of a secret power. Again, not that it's secret, but rather that it's something that if you take advantage of it, if you experiment with it, it's going to open up a range of possibilities that far exceeds just, how does the saying go that it's greater than the sum of its parts? You thin some paint and that doesn't seem like a big deal, but then when you start looking at all the ways that you can apply that you can make use of that, whether it's gradients or whether it's sparse applications of paint to give a really beat up look. Like if you remember that Star Wars Legion flyer that I did, what was it called? The LAAT patrol gunship or transport gunship or something like that. That whole convoluted paint job that, was inspired by the Bad Batch, that whole thing depended on lower opacity paint. And it was just a very rough paint job, but it ended up giving a really nice effect. So anyway, if you have not experimented or played around with opacity in your paints, I would highly recommend doing that, because it really does open up a world of possibilities that just plain old paints don't have. And it means you don't necessarily have to try and go find an enamel filter or use products that are, specifically glazes and things like that. If you just use, like with acrylic paints, if you just use water, or you use something like Lahmian medium or matte medium or something like that, to take advantage of it, it's going to really transform what you can do.